Imagine modern digital finance as like a high-speed, multi-lane highway.
Right.
You've got trillions of dollars just zipping back and forth across the globe every single second. I mean, the sheer scale and the dizzying speed of today's digital economy, it's practically incomprehensible when you really sit down and think about it.
Oh, absolutely. It's staggering.
Yeah, and on this highway, financial criminals are basically driving these souped-up million-dollar race cars. They're fast, they're evasive, and, they know all the blind spots in the system.
They really do.
Meanwhile, for a really long time, the forensic auditors who are tasked with catching them have basically been pedaling on bicycles.
Yeah, it's just this massive mismatching capabilities. I mean, you simply cannot pedal fast enough to catch a highly motivated, well-funded criminal who's operating at fiber optic speeds.
Right.
They're layering transactions through a dozen different global jurisdictions in literally the time it takes you to blink.
Which is exactly why the financial world is forcing this massive upgrade. And welcome to today's deep dive, by the way. Today we are looking at this fascinating source document titled The Vanguard of Vigilance, AI in Forensic Auditing.
It's a great read.
It really is. And it paints a very clear picture of how artificial intelligence is finally giving these investigators their own race cars. Because, as we're going to see, a forensic audit is not your standard end-of-year accounting review,
Right,
where
exactly.
someone's just, looking for a misplaced decimal or a lost receipt. Forensic auditing is specifically about hunting intentional wrongdoing. We're talking corporate fraud, money laundering, deliberate financial misstatements.
Yeah, you're looking for deception
Yeah.
that someone has gone to extraordinary lengths to hide. And hiding it has genuinely never been easier.
Because of the volume of data, right?
Exactly. The volume of data is staggering now. When a multinational corporation generates millions of individual transactions every single day, fraudsters can easily hide their needle in that massive haystack.
Yeah.
A human auditor, no matter how skilled or experienced they are, is statistically likely to miss it if they're relying on traditional reactive methods.
Right, because there's just too much to look at.
Exactly. The sheer scale is what makes AI not just a nice-to-have luxury, but an absolute necessity for modern compliance.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If we are hunting intentional deception hidden in these oceans of data, we logically need to explore what tools are actually doing the hunting.
Right.
The source document breaks down 5 core AI technologies, but instead of just, listing them off like a textbook, let's actually see how they work together in the wild.
I like that approach.
Let's invent a scenario. Say we have a rogue procurement manager, let's call him Johnson.
Okay, Johnson.
And Johnson is quietly siphoning company funds through a fake vendor he set up. How does the AI actually catch him?
Well, the first line of defense here is often natural language processing, or NLP.
Okay.
So in Johnson's case, the AI is continuously monitoring corporate communications. We're talking emails, instant messages, contract drafts, all of it.
Now, wait, I have to push back on this for a second, because when people hear that AI is scanning emails for fraud, they usually assume it's just a glorified keyword search, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like, the AI is just hitting Control F on a PDF looking for the word bribe or kickback. But a smart criminal, like our guy Johnson, he isn't going to put the word bribe in a corporate email.
He absolutely won't. And
Yeah.
what's fascinating here is that NLP goes far, far beyond simple keyword extraction.
Okay.
It's actively analyzing the semantics, the sentiment, and the overall context of the communication.
So it's reading the mood.
Essentially, yes. The algorithms are trained on linguistic markers to detect really subtle anomalies that suggest hidden intent. So, for example, Johnson might suddenly start using highly urgent pressuring language with an accounts payable clerk regarding that specific fake vendor.
Oh, wow.
Or the NLP might detect a weird shift from active to passive voice when he discusses certain contracts.
Like he's distancing himself from the action?
Exactly. If Johnson is sending these evasive emails at 2 in the morning on a Sunday, just to push an invoice through, the NLP algorithms flag the psychological pressure and the behavioral anomaly. It doesn't matter what specific vocabulary he used.
That is wild. So it's basically algorithmically reading between the lines to flag the stress in the communication.
Yes, and once the NLP flags that communication as suspicious, the system immediately triggers the next tool, which is data mining.
Right.
The AI instantly pulls every single piece of historical data related to Johnson, that specific vendor, the clerk he emailed, and the invoice in question.
Just grabs everything.
Everything. It's extracting hidden patterns from massive, completely unstructured data sets that a human wouldn't even have the time to begin cross-referencing.
Which naturally brings us to the tool that actually makes sense of those cross-referenced pieces, which is network analysis.
Yes, my favorite part.
This source talks about this as a way to uncover fraud rings. But practically speaking, this is essentially the AI version of a TV detective's corkboard, right? Instantly connecting all the suspects with a red string.
That is the perfect analogy. Imagine that corkboard, but it has a million photos on it, and the red string just arranges itself in a fraction of a second.
That's crazy.
Uses graph databases, network analysis, maps, nodes, and edges. The nodes are the entities, so people, companies, IP addresses, and the edges are the relationships between them.
Got it.
So the data mining pulls Johnson's invoice, and network analysis maps it all out. It discovers that the vendor's registered address is a P.O. box, and that P.O. box shares a phone number with an LLC owned by Johnson's cousin.
Oh, busted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It maps a relationship that is intentionally obscured on paper.
And this is where the fourth tool, machine learning, comes in to actually judge the situation, right? Because the ML model has digested millions of past examples of what fraud looks like. It's built up an intuition.
A highly sophisticated mathematical intuition, yes. Instead of relying on a human to write a static rule like flag any transaction over $10,000, the machine learning model looks at the holistic picture.
Right.
It sees the NLP sentiment flag, it sees the data mining history, it sees the network analysis connection to the cousin, and it compares that entire web against thousands of known fraud topologies. It recognizes the pattern and assigns a risk probability.
And then the final piece of this puzzle is predictive analytics. Taking all that synthesized data and actually forecasting future risk.
Yes.
Like catching the crime before the check is even cashed. It's very Minority Report, but for accounting.
It really is. It's anticipating the vulnerability before it's fully exploited. Predictive analytics uses those established patterns to say, hey, based on this specific sequence of events, there is a 94% probability that this pending wire transfer is fraudulent. The combination of those 5 technologies entirely changes the investigative workflow. It transforms auditing from a grueling manual slog into this automated, highly accurate pattern recognition machine.
And knowing these specific tools really leads to the question of what happens when they're unleashed in the real world. Because the reality of how these audits are conducted day to day fundamentally shifts the timeline of catching fraud.
It shifts it entirely.
The source lays out a really stark contrast between traditional audits and AI-based audits. Traditional audits are basically a financial autopsy.
Yes, an autopsy.
You're coming in months after the fiscal year ends, looking at a limited sample of data, trying to figure out why the company bled money. The patient is already dead.
And that limitation is largely due to human capacity. In a traditional audit, investigators might pull a random, statistically significant sample of transactions, maybe, 5% of all invoices for the year.
Which sounds reasonable until you think about what they're looking for.
Right, because the assumption in statistical sampling is that errors are normally distributed, but fraud is not an error.
Right.
And it's not normally distributed. It is deliberately concealed. If the fraudster keeps their activity outside of the parameters that auditors usually sample, they just go undetected for years. AI completely dismantles that limitation by processing 100% of the data.
Which changes the autopsy into a real-time security alarm. It's alerting you the second the window is broken.
Exactly.
And we actually see this all the time in our personal lives, right? Anyone listening has probably gotten that automated text from their bank saying, "Did you just try to buy a television in another country?"
Oh, all the time.
That is AI in action, continuously auditing your spending habits in real time.
Yes, that shift from periodic auditing to continuous auditing is basically the holy grail for forensic accountants. And we see it transforming multiple sectors beyond just retail banking.
Right, like in the corporate sector.
Exactly. It's hunting exactly the kind of internal manipulation we discussed with our hypothetical guy Johnson.
Yeah.
AI is constantly monitoring for sudden expense spikes or irregular vendor payments.
And government tax authorities are heavily leaning to this too. They're using that network analysis we talked about to track global tax evasion.
Oh, absolutely.
Peeling back the layers of shell companies to see who the ultimate beneficial owners actually are. And even e-commerce platforms are deploying these models to detect massive fake seller syndicates before they can cash out.
Yeah, and you also have to consider the operational efficiency this continuous monitoring brings.
Yeah.
Forensic auditing historically involves just an agonizing amount of deeply repetitive tasks.
Like data entry.
Manual data entry, basic ledger reconciliation, generating endless status reports. AI handles that in seconds. So by drastically reducing the manual processing cost and eliminating basic human data entry errors, you fundamentally elevate the role of the human investigator.
Right.
You free them up to focus entirely on investigating the complex anomalies that the AI serves up to them.
Okay, but let's pause here. Because if we just read the brochure on this tech, it sounds like an infallible magic wand.
Right. It sounds perfect.
It sounds like financial crime is solved, we can all go home, and human auditors are about to be replaced by a humming server rack. But logically, we have to address the blind spots.
We do.
And there is a very practical, almost infuriating limitation to this technology that anyone who has dealt with automated security systems knows all too well. False positives.
Yes, the false positives.
If the AI flags a bunch of totally normal, everyday transactions as suspicious, aren't you just creating a massive headache? You're forcing the human auditor to spend all their time chasing ghosts.
It's a huge issue. False positives are a massive operational hurdle. If a machine learning model is calibrated to be too sensitive, or if it doesn't have enough context, it will flag perfectly legitimate, if slightly unusual business activities.
Right, like an emergency purchase.
Exactly. A company might rush an urgent payment to a new vendor because of a supply chain emergency. To an overly aggressive AI, that looks exactly like fraud. And yes, a human analyst has to manually review every single one of those flags to clear them. So if your system is generating 90% false positives, you haven't saved any time. You've just created a new administrative nightmare.
Which goes directly to how a business actually implements this technology, because you can't just buy a software license and expect it to work flawlessly on day one.
Oh, no. Not at all.
The source outlines a very specific 5-step life cycle for implementing AI forensics. And it starts with data quality. There's that old computer science adage, garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
If a company has terrible data hygiene like messy, incomplete, or inconsistently categorized ledgers plugging AI into it, isn't going to fix anything. It's like training a guard dog in a house where everyone constantly breaks the windows and kicks down doors. Eventually, the dog just thinks broken glass and chaos is the baseline.
That's a great way to put it. If you feed an algorithm messy, mislabeled data, it simply learns that the noise is normal. So the very first step in implementation is painstakingly collecting and cleaning quality data.
Which sounds tedious.
It is. But once the environment is prepped, then auditors can choose the specific AI tools. And the source mentions a few heavy hitters in this space, like ACL Analytics, IDEA, SaaS Fraud Management, and IBM Watson.
So how do those tools actually differ? Because to an outsider, it just sounds like a list of tech brands.
Well, it comes down to the complexity of the data and what the investigator is actually trying to achieve. If an auditor needs to extract, scrub, and interrogate massive structured data sets using rule-based scripts, they're going to lean on tools like ACL Analytics or IDEA.
Okay.
Those are the absolute workhorses of forensic data extraction. But if they are dealing with unstructured data like interpreting thousands of chat logs using NLP or running heavy predictive modeling on global market variables, they step up to things like SaaS Fraud Management.
Or IBM Watson?
Exactly. Cognitive computing engines like IBM Watson, which can handle really deep learning processes.
Got it. And once you pick your weapon, you have to train the model, which is the third step, and where you actually solve that false positive problem.
Yes.
You have to feed it labeled data of past verified frauds and adjust the sensitivity threshold so it learns the difference between an actual crime and, say, a stressed-out executive making a late-night supply purchase.
Exactly. And then comes the integration phase, which honestly is often the most painful part for large institutions.
Why is that?
Well, you have to get these cutting-edge cognitive engines to communicate seamlessly with the company's legacy systems. And we're talking about enterprise software that might have been customized back in the late 1990s.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It requires a tremendous amount of custom API development.
And then the final piece of the implementation lifecycle is continuous monitoring. Because the AI is not a set-it-and-forget-it solution.
No, not at all.
As the criminals change their tactics, the ML models will suffer from what they call model drift if they aren't constantly fed new data and retuned by human experts.
Right.
Which really answers the looming question about job security. AI is an enhancement, not a replacement.
That is the core rule here.
Yeah.
The human element remains strictly required for several reasons that AI simply cannot replicate. AI can find the mathematical pattern, sure, but human auditors are required for judgment.
Right.
They have to interpret the nuanced context of a business decision, and they're required for legal analysis. An AI can point out a suspicious transaction, but a human must determine if a specific statute or regulation was actually violated.
That makes sense.
And crucially, AI cannot testify in court.
Oh, great point.
It cannot be cross-examined, and it certainly cannot determine the moral intent of a CEO.
So the auditor of the future isn't going away, but their job description is fundamentally changing. You can't just be a master of spreadsheets anymore. You have to become this hybrid, like a tech and finance expert. You need deep skills in data analytics, a working understanding of how to tune machine learning models, and expertise in digital forensics.
Exactly. You aren't just finding the needle in the haystack anymore. You're analyzing the needle that the machine just handed you to prove it's a murder weapon.
Wow.
The required skill set is entirely shifting from data gathering to data interpretation and strategic legal strategy. The professionals who thrive in this new era will be the ones who know how to ask the AI the right questions.
Okay, so having explored the incredible capabilities, the very real flaws like false positives, and this essential evolving partnership between humans and machines, we have to look at where this trajectory is taking the world of finance next.
Right.
Because the core benefits are obvious. Faster, smarter, proactive detection that radically reduces financial losses. But the source points to a future outlook that gets even more sophisticated, specifically with the integration of blockchain and AI.
Yes. The convergence of those two technologies is where the landscape becomes truly transformative.
How so?
Well, blockchain provides a mathematically unalterable, decentralized ledger of transactions. Once data is on the blockchain, it cannot be quietly edited or deleted by a rogue employee. It is a permanent record. And AI provides the intelligence to analyze that permanent ledger in real time. So when you combine the immutability of blockchain with the analytical power of AI, you create an environment where the traditional methods of executing and hiding fraud become exponentially more difficult.
And that leads to the ultimate evolution mentioned in the text. The entire philosophy of auditing is moving permanently from a mindset of detection, finding the crime after the money is already gone, to a mindset of absolute prevention.
Yes.
Stopping the crime before the transaction is even allowed to clear the network.
It is a massive paradigm shift for the industry. And the source document leaves us with a final insight that I think perfectly captures the dynamic we've been discussing.
What's that?
It says, fraud is becoming smarter, but with AI, detection is becoming even smarter.
It's a perpetual arms race.
Maybe
And for you listening to this, the reason this matters, even if you have absolutely nothing to do with accounting or corporate financial investigations, is that we all participate in a deeply interconnected, incredibly fragile financial ecosystem.
We really do.
Your retirement funds, the security of your banking systems, the overall stability of the global markets we rely on, they all depend entirely on this invisible, high-tech vigilance to remain stable. The health of the economy literally requires that the investigators can drive just as fast as the criminals.
It truly is the invisible infrastructure of trust in the digital age.
Yeah.
Without these advanced AI tools acting as a bulwark, that foundational trust would quickly erode under the sheer volume and sophistication of modern financial crime.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Which leaves me with a thought I haven't been able to show since we started unpacking all of this today. We talked earlier about those financial criminals driving million-dollar race cars and how AI is finally giving the auditors their own race cars to compete on that digital highway.
Right.
But if AI auditing systems and AI-powered fraudsters are both out there on that highway, continuously learning, automatically adapting, and evolving from each other's tactics, are we heading toward a future where financial crime is entirely a battle of algorithms? Like a highway full of race cars driven entirely by ghost code, completely invisible to human eyes. It's definitely something to think about next time you swipe your credit card.